Hi colleagues, as promised, I'm going to be sharing with you how you can use ratio and proportion and dimensional analysis to solve your questions. So let's use this question as an example. An inhalation aerosol contains 225 milligrams of methylpropyl sulfate, which is sufficient for 300 inhalations. How many micrograms of the drug would be contained in each inhalation? So the first thing we're going to do. The first thing that we are going to do is that we are going to write down what is known and what is known. What is known is that 225 milligrams of the drug is contained in 300 inhalations. That's what the question says. The question requires that we determine in micrograms how many micrograms of the drug will be contained in one inhalation. So the next step, we need to write down the related conversion. We know that 1 milligram is equivalent to 0.001 gram, and that 1 milligram is equivalent to 0.001 gram, or 1,000 milligrams is equivalent to 1 gram, and 1 microgram is equivalent to 0.00001 grams. Next step then is to convert the 225 milligrams to micrograms using the conversions that we have just stated. So since 1 milligram is equivalent to 1,000 micrograms, then 225 milligrams is equivalent to X. And we set up our cross multiplication. We set up our cross multiplication, and we get a total of 225,000 micrograms. What does this mean? It means that the 225,000 micrograms is contained in 300 inhalations. But this is not going to help us because the question is asking how many micrograms of the drug is contained in one inhalation. So what we're going to do then is to make that connection. Since 225,000 micrograms is contained in 300 inhalations, then we can determine how many micrograms will be contained in one. We set up our cross multiplication again, and we get 750 micrograms. This is a step-by-step process of writing down what is available, the information that's available, and what is needed, and we try to get there using the conversion factors. Now, if it is that you're going to be using dimensional analysis, how do we approach it? Dimensional analysis requires you to know the conversion factors. It requires you to know what it is that you have to get to where you want to be. In this case, we have milligrams and we want micrograms per inhalation. So we have to set up the conversion factors such that we can achieve the final answer in micrograms per inhalation. So let's see how we do it. So you note what it is that we need to determine. And we know we need to determine the amount of micrograms per one inhalation. So we need to note what you need to convert to. So we need to convert 225 milligrams to micrograms. And we have to now set up the dimensions to get from what you have to what you want. So we need to move from 225 milligrams to get a final answer of amount. We don't know what that amount is, but it surely must be amount microgram per inhalation. So how do we move from 225 milligrams to microgram per inhalation? We have to use conversion factors. So we have to recall the conversion factors that is going to allow us to get there. We recall that we have to now change 225 milligrams to microgram somehow. And we also need for this microgram that we're going to get to be per inhalation. So one conversion factor is that 1 milligram is equivalent to 1000 micrograms. Also, another conversion factor that is going to help us to get to the answer, to the units that we want, is that for every 300 inhalation, we have 225 milligrams of drug. So when we set that up, we want 225 milligrams per inhalation times per 300 inhalation times something to give us microgram per inhalation. That should be 225 milligrams per 300 inhalation. So let's see how we can now use the conversion factors that we just spoke about to get it. So first, 225 milligrams is in 300 inhalation. So the conversion factor right there is 225 milligrams per 300 inhalation. We multiply that times 1000 micrograms divided by 1 milligram. That is the conversion factor. Conversion factor is 1000 micrograms is equivalent to 1 milligram. Now, you notice that the milligrams are cancelling out. And what you are going to end up with is microgram per 300 inhalation. That's 1000 micrograms times 225 divided by 300 inhalation. So, when you do your calculations, then you're going to end up with 750 milligrams per inhalation. So let's go through it again. We're setting up our conversion factor to get the microgram per inhalation. So we need to write what it is that you have. You have 225 milligrams per 300 inhalation. Question tells you. But you now have to determine what conversion factor must I multiply this by to end up with 750 micrograms per inhalation. And that is how you end up with the answer. And let me just make the correction here rather quickly. This should be micrograms and this should be per 300 inhalation, so that we're all on the same page. Okay, 300 inhalation. So let's go through it again. We're setting up on my dimension. We want 225 milligrams per 300 inhalation to divide by a particular conversion factor to end up with microgram per inhalation. So we are going to use the conversion factors to get to where we want. So recall that 1 milligram is equivalent to 1000 micrograms. Also 225 milligrams of drug is contained in 300 inhalation. So we're setting up the conversion factor 225 milligrams per 300 inhalation times a conversion factor of 1000 micrograms per 1 milligram, because that's the conversion. And we're going to end up with 750 micrograms